Hey, welcome in. It's the North Idaho Prepcast here on IdahoSports.com. Happy to have you with us as I happen to be the new host here in the North Idaho Prepcast. Hayden Uhlenkott here as we are excited to get going on episode 2. If you missed episode 1, it was a good one. We had Brandon Bainey and Ryan Scaggs. I'll bring him on here in a second. We went through our biographies, just about anything you could know about us. We basically went through it. So don't miss that one. Go watch it if you haven't. As always, this Prepcast is on YouTube, X, and Facebook, streaming live. And then if you miss it, you can always watch it later on any of your streaming services, whether that's Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and the hundreds of others that there are. And we also want to recognize our sponsor for the video. As always, it's Cornerstone Insurance. And without further ado, I might as well bring on the owner of it, Ryan Scaggs. What's going on, Ryan?
Dude, we're here. It's Wednesday. It is the official week 1 of high school sports here in the state of Idaho. And I'm here for it, man. I'm excited. I mean, summer's kind of in the waning moments, you get a little bit shorter evenings and everything now. And I think everybody's getting ready for this next school year to kick off. I mean, I know some of the kids are probably dreading it, but as a parent, I'm more than excited for school to get back into session.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm just so excited for it so I can finally stop thinking of what's going to happen and actually see results. Whether that's really any sport, is you just want to be able to see what's going to happen instead of just projecting.
Yeah, I mean, we can quit guessing now. We can actually start seeing, results happen in the field of play. So whether that's golf or volleyball or soccer or whatever else now, I mean, everything, it seems like, teachers are back in the classrooms. I live down the street from Woodland Middle School here in Coeur d'Alene, and, the parking lot's full every morning now. So, it's kind of the official start. I got email today for, open house next week for school. So, I mean, we're 2 weeks away until school gets back into session here in Coeur d'Alene, but I know probably a little bit different. Some of the other districts have actually gone back either this week or next. So, I mean, away we go.
Yeah, I think Cottonwood starts in about 2 weeks. That's where I'm based out of. And yeah, I think they come back right after Labor Day. So they'll have a game under their belt, and then they'll almost be working into their second game. Some teams are already going to be into their second game before they even start school. Yep. So it's kind of weird how that works. Some schools start early, some schools start late. But if you haven't tuned into the North Idaho Prepcast, in the past, we typically, we touch on everything. We try to hit every single box score. And this year, I don't think that's really our goal. We would like to touch on a few sports each Prepcast and try to go into the weeds with them a little bit. We're going to be covering football throughout the year, and then we'll also have basketball. And so during those games, we'll actually be able to analyze what happened in those games instead of just reading the box scores and assuming what happened, because sometimes that isn't actually telling the truth of what really happened in that ball game. And so initially what we were going to do is talk about volleyball. I had my mind set up on Monday that we were going to talk about volleyball. And, today rolled around and I realized I don't know enough about volleyball without seeing some polls and seeing what some coaches in the media think. So we're going to put a pin in that one and push it off to next week. There's volleyball starting. I believe later on, I think Saturday is the first game. I think at least up north in District 1. But golf's kicked off, and there was a tournament last Thursday in Liberty Lake, I believe, at the Meadowood Golf Course. And the girls, it was a tournament between Lewiston, Post Falls, Lakeland, Lake City, and Sandpoint. Lewiston actually won that. And then in the boys, the Lake City and Sandpoint tied. One of the top scorers for Sandpoint was senior Logan Roos. He actually only shot 2 over par, so that's pretty good. He actually hit an eagle. I'm not too in tune with the golf world, Ryan, but how is golf in Northern Idaho? Because it mainly is Northern Idaho and then a little bit of Lewiston.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can just talk about the courses. We could do an entire episode talking about golf courses in North Idaho. It's just, man, you got ridiculous places to play up here. But no, great. And in Sandpoint, I think, is one of those teams that is looking to really, after a good showing last year on the boys' side, especially, turning the corner. Logan Roos he's a phenomenal golfer. And if Max jumps into the chat, on the side, it's going to be interesting to see how things go and if he can, make some noise, come state tournament time this year in golf. But Max Oswald with the Bonner County Daily Bee is your absolute guru when it comes to any sport, whether it's in District 1 for that matter. Just he breaks down everyone. It seems he's got knowledge about everybody, but especially golf, he puts in the time and puts in the work. And so, yeah, a match play tournament, really cool format. I mean, it's a nice way to kind of kick the season off because you're playing hole on hole. It's just a matter of keeping score. You get a point for winning a hole. And so, you go through that and the scores kind of look funky. It's like, hey, somebody had, 12-9 and something else. And it's like, hold on, you should start doing the math. And it's like, okay, and 12-9 is not possible because it doesn't add up to 18. But you play 18 holes and you match play through. And you pair up with players from other schools, and I think it may have been a foursome going through each hole. So whoever wins that hole gets the point. And the Lewiston girls came out strong in that first tournament, and obviously Sandpoint Lake City looked really good just to kick things off. We're really early in the season. The courses, for the most part, are in great condition. There's a few courses here locally that have, we've been having a slight less amount of rain lately. So some of the fairways are rough on a few of the courses locally that, will be played a few times this season. But for the greens, for that matter, are all pretty good. They're going to be fast right now just because of how dry they are. So, but yeah, no, I'm excited to see more golf this year and North Idaho try to, make some really good showings again. We saw Coeur d'Alene girls last year have a great showing. And, I think there's a lot of expectations around the Sandpoint boys this year too.
It should be fun to see. We do have some comments rolling in. Is Lane Kirkland going to be on today? I don't think Lane's going to make an appearance. He's typically down in the southern Idaho.
Oh, range. I think he's talking about the 8-man Prepcast.
And that's what I'm thinking is 8-man. Which, unfortunately, we're not quite cool enough to make the 8-man Prepcast with Will Heineke and Brandon Bainey and all those guys. So we'll settle for North Idaho. Maybe one day we'll be cool enough to get Lane Kirkland on the North Idaho Prepcast. That'd be pretty cool.
I'd like to see him break down some 8-man football up north, just to see what get the outsider's perspective on what's going on up here. Because we can talk about it as ad nauseum, you and I, just both being, it's in our backyards. But it would be nice to see some of the guys from around the state see what they have to say about how tough the kids are up here.
Yeah, that would be really cool. We also have Sam Buffington. He's always reposting, doing his best. And Sam made some controversial news last night. We'll talk about it a little on. We'll see how true Sam was there. I don't know. It's up for debate.
And we also have something hook, line, and sinker. You never.
We also have Sean Kane in the chat. As always, if you have any comments or you want to make any sort of news on the North Idaho Prepcast, you can always drop a comment. And even if you guys want to get a hold of us, you can get a hold of our X accounts, or somehow you can find our emails. Maybe we'll drop that in the notes below or something like that. We'll figure it out throughout the year.
Yeah.
But we know we've gone probably long enough not getting into anything.
And I'll give a shout out to Sean Kane. He's one of our broadcasters for IdahoSports.com. He's over and does the East Idaho Prepcast and does an awesome job. So, but yeah, we just need to start talking about sports. I think it's enough of beating around the bush and dipping our toe in the water. It's time to just jump in.
Yes, absolutely. And with that being said, I think we'll just start with football. It's probably the sport that we know the most right now because of all the work that Brandon Bainey's put in. And football started last week. So a lot of teams you're able to go watch them on the field. You're able to just see what teams are thinking. And it gives you a good idea. And with that, we have the North Idaho preseason coaches polls. This is something that was put together last week, and it went conference by conference throughout the entire state of Idaho. I guess, Ryan, when you look through these, we're going to make our picks too or I don't even know if we'll really make picks because we'll probably just agree with a lot what the coaches think. But what stands out to you when you look through this preseason poll?
I really look at the 5A. I think is of any of the conferences that kind of might be a little, I don't want to say wrong, but I think Lakeland's going to be a heck of a lot better than people are giving them credit for. They've got some experience at QB. They don't have the returning starter from last year, but their QB that they're going to be running with this year, he played QB 2 years ago. He played against Post Falls and a few other games. as a sophomore. So now he's a senior stepping back into that role. And there's some pieces around him. And you got like Jace Taylor and Cash Lund out there. Lakeland's going to be a lot better. I think people are really giving them credit for it. I see them being pretty strong. I don't know if they're going to have the same showing that they had last year about making it to the semifinals. But and Sandpoint's another one of those teams I think could just sneak up on people. They've got their returning quarterback coming back. Maverick Gomez, he is an absolute freak athlete, probably the fastest player in North Idaho. So, yeah, that 5A is just an absolute meat grinder. Lewiston picked at 1, I think, is just based pure upon the fanfare and hoopla that is surrounding the arrival of Zane Hobart at head coach. How does his I guess, acumen translate to the 11-man game? I think he's going to do a great job. I really do. I thought it was a home run hire. And then some of the staff he brought in around him, whether it's, Justin Podrobsky and bringing in his OC from Kendrick, Greg Frisbee, and a lot of those other coaches that have come back from the former staff as well. There's, I think, 3 coaches on that staff that have head coaching experience. So there's a ton of experience on that Lewiston staff. I see the Bengals being very competitive. Kind of looking around too, I think that 1A North Star League is going to be pretty darn competitive. You could reorganize that order out of the top, in my opinion, the top 3 teams. I think Coeur d'Alene could be a lot better this year in their second year in existence. They've got some really nice pieces back this year. And then the White Pine 1A is, for me, just kind of a giant question mark. It's like, who wants to win that conference? And we've seen it go down to the wire the last few years. Can Genesee climb the ladder this year and topple Deary off the top, or Lewis County? Can they stay healthy and get a nice run put together? There's some interesting storylines looking at it now. I'm sure we'll have a whole different story come November. But just looking at this now, for the most part, by and large, I agree with the order, though.
And I think it's going to be really, thinking about the 1A is how you have teams like Wallace and Lakeside. They do make trips down south, or at least play the teams down south. They have, Wallace plays Genesee. They also play Timberline. That's a good idea to figure out where you're going to be in the year, because as we saw in the media poll, Deary was actually ranked higher than anyone in the North Star. North Star didn't get any votes, which is a little strange, but I don't know. Maybe people just don't know as much about the North Star League. We also want to, I do want to point this comment out from Sean Kane, because, Ryan's just getting richer as we go. We might as well just try to advertise this podcast.
We got an NIL deal going on or something on the side. I don't know.
And as always, football has arrived. Yes, it has. 2 days away. We are stoked for it. The other teams that I see on here that a lot of people have talked about is Priest River. They're in first place with the coaches. Grangeville not far behind. But I also think Kellogg at 4. I'm excited to see if Kellogg and St. Mary's, I think that's going to be a good matchup to
Kellogg
see if those two could flip spots.
Kellogg could find their way into the playoffs via an at-large bid this year, just based on what they return in the skill positions and at quarterback. I think Kellogg's going to be better than what their record's showing. I think I should say. I think Kellogg could find their way in the playoff.
And you also have Orfino and St. Mary's both with new head coaches. We'll see how they'll do. They have the alma maters back running the show. They're young guys. I'm excited to see it. Almost, something I thought about probably 3 weeks ago is you have a bunch of coaches in here that are, relatively speaking, pretty young. I mean, Hayden Humphreys from St. Mary's graduated, I think, in like 2017. Seth Melton from Orfino was like 2011. You have Ty Kep from Kendrick, who's younger than me, which is crazy. He can't even
youngest coach in the country. Yeah,
Ty can't do a lot of things right now legally. You also have Garrison Bretts from Kamei. It just, the list goes on. There are a lot of new coaches in this, in the North Idaho area. Even Byron Hout from Lake City. I mean, relatively speaking, a fairly young coach. And I think it's just exciting to see all these new coaches. I don't want to say it's a changing of the guard, but it kind of feels like it. You have people like Sean Amos and even like Ryan Ball, who have been around, and like Ryan Hasselstrom, who've been around forever. And now you have this new age. So how will those, schemes and how they coach, the philosophies work against each other?
Yeah. I mean, Coach Amos has been at Coeur d'Alene for 28 seasons now. And, you got Coach Bennett, who's been at Post Falls for what seems like, gosh, at least 11 years, I think now, as far as the head man. But, and then you throw in, in the IML, you've got a newer coach at Moscow, but, Timberlake's been their coach has been there forever. Bonner's Ferry changed head man a couple years ago after their playoff run. So there's been a movement of coaches around, kind of the carousel. And I'm glad you mentioned Kamiai getting a new coach and Coach Brett's. That's the one hire I look at that could be a real bright spot for the Cubs. I think that I don't know. I know that, losing Dave Klut's that's a generational athlete, but I still think Kamiai is going to be a pretty decent ball club this year. And I look at them at 5 for me, kind of makes me scratch my head a little bit in that conference. I think they're getting slighted a little bit early on. They could be better than that by the end of the season.
Yeah, in the White Pine League, respectively, there are a lot of, after Kendrick and Logos, I think, if we were to make picks, I think we definitely would say Kendrick and Logos are at the top of that league. But after that, it's like, okay, who's next? And I think a lot of it is people just putting a lot of respect on Ryan Ball and Ryan Hasselstrom. I think that's the main reason for why they're ranked so high. Don't get me wrong, they both bring back good athletes. But having that coaching experience is a huge head up for those two programs, especially. And then you have the teams like Clearwater Valley and Lapwai that are trying to find some, footing and trying to work their way up. And, I think Lapwai and Kamiai play each other twice, and Lapwai plays Kamiai right out the gate. That'll be a good opening game for Garrison Bretts to try out against Josh Layton. Just different. It's not something you're probably used to playing a lot of Lapwai schools. Josh Layton pulls out these crazy formations, and he definitely makes a coach think.
Yeah, and he's got athletes too, and that's the thing. I mean, that conference top to bottom is pretty good. And we've been talking about it years past where it's like, there's 5 teams in that conference that are deserving of a playoff bid. Sometimes it's been 6. So, what gets brought to the table? Coach Bretts has experience, though. I mean, he was, at Orfino previously, I believe, in the past, and so he's been around the game for a long time. It's just, how does this thing turn around? I look at it and, gosh, it's going to be really interesting. I think it's going to be a great, next few years. And Sean put it in the comments too, and I think I agree with it. The new landscape of sports, we're going to see less and less 20-year head coaches, and good or bad, he's not sure. I agree. I think there's a youth movement too that some of these guys have stay power. I think we're going to see less guys staying in one spot for 20 years. I could still see them coaching. I just don't know if we're going to see guys end up in one spot, for longer than, I don't. You kind of look at Coach Amos at Coeur d'Alene. I don't know if we're going to see that again. 28 years at one school, that's going to be, I think going by the wayside, the more we get into the latter half of the century.
I think there's a really good chance. I mean, even just south of us, you look at McCall with David Joyce coming in from Teton. I don't want to touch on District 3 too much, but I don't think David Joyce is planning on leaving Teton, and here he is in McCall.
That's a nice good place opportunity. To be.
I mean, I'd take that move in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And also brings his son over, Joker Joyce, and it'll be cool to see how McCall does. McCall will play some of the teams from this North Idaho area. Grangeville will play them. I'm not sure what other teams off the top of my head, but I know Grangeville will play them. And whenever those two teams play, it's always going to be a good game.
Yeah.
And, I think if we went, classification by classification, Ryan, where do you think your head would be? If we look at 1A White Pine, in the 1A White Pine ranks, do you think Deary's probably that number 1 team, or do you think someone else would pop up there?
I do. I still think that they've got enough guys back from last year's, playoff run. I would still put a pin at them at the top for right now. Granted, everybody stays healthy. I mean, that's the biggest key that we've seen in years past. We've had favorites, and then their top player goes down for 3-4 games. And, the tides turn pretty darn quick in that conference when you get a player go down. So, it's going to be, I for right now, the way it stands, I see Deary. I think Genesee could challenge too. I really do. And then it depends on, who Lewis County has. And gets to turn out and gets to stay out and gets to be healthy. And Timberlines ran into that same thing. They've been competitive in years past, but they just get absolutely snake bit by injuries, to where they're rolling out, their wide receiver moves to offensive tackle or whatever. So yeah, it's just you get an 8-man football, you lose a player or two. I mean, that you notice it in a hurry.
Yeah, you sure do. And I mean, even Genesee was a team, Sean make the comment, 10 years is the new 20. Justin Hansen, he's been around Genesee forever, and he's back, he's been in the coaching seat a couple times. I didn't even realize he'd won a state championship at one time. And so he's back. He's a really solid coach, has a way above 500 winning percentage. I think Justin could do really well there.
I mean, Coach Hansen does a great job, and he's a great guy too. I've actually called a state championship game with him a few years ago in the Kiwi Dome when Sandpoint played down there against Skyline. But no, I think he's going to do fine. I mean, that's a familiar name. The kids are familiar with him. He's still been around the program. He's been in the building. So that's a hire for them. I think, you go with the safe bet, replacing Justin Pedrobsky, who went to Lewiston. So that's, I think Genesee is going to be right in the mix. I see Deary Genesee. That is probably the correct ranking for right now going into the season. And then if you look at, like, say, the North Star with Wallace, Lakeside, Quarter Christ, and Clark Fork, we talked about the quarterback play last year in that conference. There was a lot of youngsters. I mean, you had 2 freshmen starting, a sophomore and a junior, and this year they're all back. Every one of them comes back. Wallace picked to finish at the top. Obviously they bring back highly touted quarterback Cooper Miller, a phenomenal athlete. And Lakeside has, a stud of their own, Tyson Charlie, quarterback. They're going to be just fine. Quarter Christ, they come back in and they've got, the coach's son, Clemens, Grant Clemens he's a great young arm too. And his dad, obviously leading that team in their second year of existence. The cool thing about that team, they could be a dark horse because they can run the ball. They've got a great running back in John Denke behind Clemens, and they've got some big wide receivers. That's a team, if they can get the line, to give some time, that's a team I really see that. I mean, they pushed Lakeside last year. They pushed Wallace at times. So can Quarter Christ play the spoiler? I mean, that conference really realistically is, you're a turnover or 2 away from upsetting, and that thing could just be an absolute free-for-all.
And we talked about it. I think maybe it was the first Prepcast. Brandon brought it up, but Wallace and Lakeside were battling, and they both thought they had a chance to make the tournament last year, and only one of them got in. And so I think this year they're really hoping that people actually get the opportunity to make the tournament just for fun, because this is not a scheduled broadcast at all. We want to make sure everyone sees Ryan's face. But we'll see if we get.
I don't know if that's Paul or Brandon.
I don't know. We'll get rid of it. Everyone wants to see Ryan's face now, so that's what we're doing. We're going back and forth. I agree. That one's going to be a dogfight all the way through. And the 2A we already talked about, we think Kendrick, Logos are at the top, but whoever's in that 3 seed, 4 seed, or 5, really all 3 of them could make the tournament. So I think if you're in that top 3, top 4, you're going to have a chance, and you're going to have a chance to play deep into the playoffs.
We know the Max Preps rankings are going to be there just based on pure strength of schedule. So, it's when they play some of these crossover games the next few weeks, you're going to have to beat those District 5, District 4, District 6 teams. In those games, you're going to have to win them. And, that's the thing, from the north, you've got Kendrick, who's been the juggernaut. And this is their last year at 2A. They're going back to 1A next year with the new classification. So can Kendrick have their little 2-year run, go back to back, and go back down to 1A? Who knows? Maybe the state forces them to play up. I don't know how that's going to look yet, because they haven't actually announced who's going up or down on the opt-ins. But as far as enrollment goes, Kendrick will be a 1A school next year. So, and then we talked a little bit about the 3A Central Idaho League. I think that one, Kellogg St. Mary's, you could flip-flop those ones, but I think that one's correct. And then going to the IML at 4A, Bonners is going to be better than people are giving credit for. They're returning a lot of pieces from last year's team. Timberlake, I think, is going to struggle, especially early. Their schedule's tough. They got Sugar coming up, Sugar Salem, defending state champs coming up this weekend. That is a absolute. They're playing in Anaconda, Montana, in a meet in the middle game. That one I look at, and that there's trouble brewing on that one just based on what's coming back, and I know that coaching will come around. I think it'll prevail at the end, but Bonners Ferry is the team I look at in that conference that could probably surprise some people just based on how competitive they are this year compared to the last couple of years.
Yeah, they sure do have really good athletes, and I think just seeing how it'll change, I think, is really it could surprise some people. I totally
you got
agree.
Hyatt and Abubakari, and there's some dudes there. So I mean, they've got kids that can play, and the coach does a great job of motivating them. I think that they should be a better team this year, obviously, than last year. They push and make the playoffs? That's the one that's going to be the question mark. But they've got some studs. They do.
And we touched on 5A. We think that one's going to be honestly a toss-up where any of them could win it. Lakeland probably should be the favorite, but we're not going to, pull teeth there. We're going to kind of leave it as it is. In 6A, I think it's probably pretty set in stone that Coeur d'Alene should be the favorite. But who do you think is that two seed? Do you think Lake City could move up?
You know what? Yeah, it's possible. I mean, it's how are they going to do with the turnovers this year? Because we saw Lake City last year, take Highland. I think it was like a 6-3 game or something like that. And so, they can compete with some of the better teams. Lake City can. They've been snake bitten a little bit the last few years within the conference of, start strong, finish, they fade at the end. I was around that program just a little bit this summer at a camp that they hosted for the Gridiron Dreams Academy, and getting to know some of those kids and talking to Coach Hout at length about his program. And he's high on his group. He's got me to be a little bit of a believer. I'm thinking that they could do some stuff. I don't know, can they surmount Post Falls and maybe secure an at-large playoff bid? We'll see. Their schedule is going to be strong enough. I think Lake City scheduled well. They're going to have to get some wins in games, though. Those close ones, they're going to have to win those this year. They can't be dropping those, 1-2 possession games like they have been in years past just because of turnovers. Post Falls, I think, is going to be better, but they're going to be pretty good. The question mark's at quarterback. I mean, you're replacing a 3-year starter. And so what's that going to look like? And I think you're going to get a 1-year rental out of their quarterback. I believe he's a senior coming in, and he was a wide receiver last year. So Post Falls is kind of a team that I don't know you don't know a ton about them because they graduated so many good athletes last year. But they do return some nice pieces, especially up front. They've got some great linemen coming back. They've historically had a really good run game. They're going to have to continue that to take some pressure off the QB. And then Coeur d'Alene, we talked about a lot last night. And then some more news came out this morning that they're going to be without Christian Young, their starting running back. For how long has not yet, I don't know that one, but I know that he suffered a knee injury this week. And so he will for sure be out in the Rigby game. That's a huge loss because Young came in the season just absolutely yoked, and he was, flying down the field. And so they're going to have to go running back by committee. I mean, you're going to see Palmgren, you're going to see Dolan, you're going to see Murray back there in the backfield. How are they going to use Tanner Stern? I mean, he's an X factor. He's going to hurt you with his legs. And there is a lot of buzz about him playing the linebacker position this year too. So defensively, we know Coeur d'Alene's going to be good. They returned a ton of dudes that had triple-digit or close to triple-digit tackles. So, we see them play sideline to sideline. They're going to be okay on defense, but, who's Simmons going to be able to distribute to, I think, is the biggest question. Are they going to be a semifinal team, or are they going to, lose in a close quarterfinal game? I don't know. I do see them as a playoff team for sure. But, I mean, District 3 looks really good this year in 6A. They look really good.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how Coeur d'Alene utilizes Tanner Stern. I mean, I know there was the talk about, Caden moving over to wide receiver. I'm not sure how true that is. It could be possible, but I think it's more likely that
I don't know if it's going to be all season. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely agree there. We have a few comments coming in. Max Oswald, he does a great job with the Bonner Bee, and Bonner has some real studs. Just talking about it at lunch today with some guys. So we were just talking about you, Max, saying how great of a job that you do. We're not even making that up.
Yeah.
Um,
No, and I agree. They've got dudes on dudes. They have the bodies on the field this year, and it looks kind of similar to the team that they had a few years ago when they made the playoffs. For the first time in that long time, I look at this group and the way they, could gel this season. It could be an exciting and fun team to watch.
There's also a comment from Josh McDonald. Kellogg might surprise people. I think we'll see a stylistic change based on some injuries, but they added quality linemen via transfer. Biggest question mark is on defense. I did see that Radley McDonald got hurt in 7-on-7. I'm curious to see how different they look. I know, the Lewis brothers do a great job and very athletic, but I'm excited to see how they do. Yeah.
We know they
Speaking
can
of
score.
Porter Lewis, yes.
Yeah, they can score points in a hurry, and like I said, Kellogg could surprise people and find their way in the playoffs. I really, if they figure it out on defense, we know the offensive production's there. Defensively, they're going to have to figure it out this year to have a playoff chance. But that offense could carry them. You never know. But I mean, that conference is deceptively tough. So with Priest River and the turnaround they've had, can they keep the momentum going? We know they've got the pieces back. Grangeville, they have a kind of a hiccup year and a slowdown based on kind of the stranglehold that they've had on things in years past. I don't know with, Smith at QB, not offensive line, Brandon. And then, the absence of Poxleitner and the other kids that they've had in the backfield. So there's, they're replacing some pretty key parts. That's going to be the thing to watch. What does Grangeville do? But I realistically, like I said, I could see Priest River 1, Kellogg 2 in real life. That wouldn't shock me at all.
Yeah, no, I talked with Jeff Adams quite a bit with Grangeville, and their offense is going to look very different. They have extremely good athletes on the edge. I would expect to see them air it out. Gage Smith has a really good arm on him. He's a really, really good quarterback. He's super cerebral, and so I'm really excited to see Gage play. I mean, even the few times that I saw him play last year as a sophomore, he stepped in and he played really, really well. Paul Kingsbury. I don't even know if I've ever seen Paul comment before. You guys should have Max as a co-host next week. I agree. Max,
I did that last year.
He
is the man, dude. Max is the guy that he knows everything and everyone. So I think he would be great to bring on, especially with some of the other sports like volleyball, soccer, golf. Like that guy covers it all. And you talk about putting the mileage in. That guy is absolutely getting after it. So we'll continue to sing his praises because Max does a phenomenal job at the Bonner County Daily Bee.
100%. Well, we're running a little behind on time, mainly because all these comments. I mean, holy cow. Yeah. But we touched last night, Ryan and Brandon touched on the teams from all the preseason teams. And I figured, you know what, they already hit on 6, 5, 4, and 3A. Let's just look at the little guys.
Yeah.
So
you're freezing
we're
up
going to look at 2A
on me.
maybe. And 2A has a lot of interesting pieces that will be. Let's get it here in a second. Let me see if I can work through my malfunctions. Here we are. Once it shows up, we will roll. I don't know if we'll get it today.
If you want to go to our IdahoSports.com,
if you look at the 2A rank, yeah, absolutely. That's just what we're doing here. But the main people that are going to show up is Maddox Kirkland, Everett Oatman, Cade Silflo, Nathan Twite, as well as Finn McCool. And then on the defensive side of the ball, there's Pete Story, Bretton Breeze, Jacob Keck, Tanner Clemenhagen, Chris Shoemaker, Raleigh Rodesender. And, Ryan, who are the kids that show up to you that you're like, okay, these guys are for sure going to make the list and these guys are for sure going to have a great year?
Honestly, I think it's some of the guys that aren't even on the list. I mean, you can't put everyone, obviously, but I mean, Maddox Kirkland, we know he's going to have video game numbers. We know Nathan Twite coming back this year at full strength after an injury last year. He's going to be the truth. Cade Silflo did such a phenomenal job. And then you also look at Raleigh Rodesender at Kendrick, as good as he is on offense, he's equally, if not better, on defense. And that's why obviously he's there at DB. But I look at Tanner Clemenhagen from Kendrick. I mean, that kid is an absolute hammer. There's some other players there that are just, I think you're going to see breakout years from some of these other players for the Tigers too. But for me, the blaring absence is Logos guys. And I know that the Knights love having that chip on their shoulder, and I hope we gave some bulletin board material. So that will be interesting to see. And in the comments, I know I mentioned about quarterback for Post Falls, and the Austin's going to be the quarterback. Was the freshman and JV QB. So yeah, I mean, how can he do? I think it's going to be interesting to see in that offense with Coach Bennett. That we know that they're a high tempo offense. But we'll go back into that all-state list. The preseason, just kind of get some names and notoriety out there. There's some dudes missing, in my opinion, too. There's, Kamiai's got a couple of really great athletes on the outside and QB. Potlatch has a really good running back that's not on the list. I go up north. I mean, obviously we haven't gone to 1A yet, so I'll kind of hold off on that one. But some, the ones that really stand out, I think Raleigh Rotsitsender at Kendrick is probably the best two-way player in 8-man football, at least in 2A, in my opinion, as far as consistency from both sides of the ball. Like he's really, really good. And we saw some, like I said, some of those role players coming in the playoffs and just absolutely play lights out. So it'll be interesting to see, like, that group, while they graduated some talent last year, to see these other guys that kind of played behind the Silflos and the other ones that, can they step in and, contribute? I mean, Kendrick had a kid go play D1 football. So, it's not like there was an absence of talent within the program. They've won 4 in a row. But yeah, I mean, it's the White Pine League, I think, in 8-man 2A has probably the best body of athletes of any, other league within the state. I mean, just look top to bottom within the conference. It's extremely strong. I mean, you've got great running backs at Prairie. You've got a great running back. Clearwater Valley's had some guys too. So, like, that's the other thing to keep an eye out too, is that they've always had some really solid linemen also. So they can move the ball up and down the field too. It'll be a lot of fun to see this conference get after it, come Friday. We can stop flapping our gums about it here and start seeing it actually produce on the screen.
Yes. The one team that I thought of was Logos, and you brought them up too, is they lost 12 seniors. They're bringing in still like 12 seniors this year too.
Yep.
And none of those guys really got a lot of playing time. And it's not because they weren't good. It's because the athletes ahead of them were extremely good. And to see, I talked with Nick Holloway, the coach for Logos, and the main thing he said is, like, these guys are hungry. They want to play. They want to get better. That they want to get reps. And that's a advantage that Logos has, is you have these kids that are they've been chomping at the bit for the last 3 years, and now they get this opportunity. How's it going to work out for them? Switching over to 1A, I'll just read through the names that are up north. We have Tyson Charlie and Cooper Miller, the 2 quarterbacks. You have John Denke as the great running back from Coeur de Christ. We also have Jacob Metchling. Who else do we have here?
And Mechling's a stud. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Reese Williams was the offensive lineman for Wallace, but you're right. Meckling is very good. He can play.
Yeah, 100%. Like that's a great athlete. And like Deary doesn't get a lot of talk. And that's, I think, they haven't been short on really good players, and Meckling really stands out. He was on my all North Idaho team. And you obviously look at Blake Clark on the defensive front for Deary too. But yeah, there's a lot of players. Greg Hayes for Coeur de Christ at DB. He plays great on offense too. The fact that you're seeing some of the Coeur de Christ kids show up on this list, obviously you've got the 2 QBs in 1A are both in the same league, Tyson Charlie and Cooper Miller. I mean, it says a lot about that conference. And then you followed up with Denke at running back. I mean, you've got some of the better offensive firepower within the state in 1A football sitting right there in the North Star League. Like that.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed this, but there's 8 offensive players on that list, and there's only 2 defense. Do you think there's maybe a shortage of defense up north? Because I mean,
look at the scores.
You see a lot of 80-70 type scores up north,
Yeah.
and defense I wouldn't say is a strong suit. We'll see how well it translates when they get the opportunity to go down south. And that's a game we'll touch on next week. But Lakeside and Council play week 2 in Cottonwood, and I'm going to be on that game. But I am super excited for it because Council's a team that's really good. And we'll see how good Lakeside really is when they get to play a team like that from District 3. I think that's going to be a really good game. And so now we've hit all the preseason teams. Let's hop into, this is our last bit of football. The games this week. You were on the James State game day yesterday. You hit all the big games like Coeur d'Alene and Rigby. We didn't touch on some of the other ones. And I wanted to start with the little guys first in 1A and 2A. The big games that pop up to me in 2A are Kendrick and Butte County in Homedale, and then Logos at Hagerman. What are your 2 takeaways with those teams?
I think Logos is still going to be good. I really do. They're going to be okay. They're still they got great athletes within that program. We saw 2 pretty crazy good groups of kids come through the last 2 years. Can they continue that momentum? I absolutely think so. Hagerman, they're bringing back some good players too. I mean, that's going to be a tough game right out of the chute. That is an absolute dogfight for a week 1 game, which that game you can watch right here on IdahoSports.com on Saturday. And that's a 1:00 kickoff. That's Pacific time. It'd be 2:00 down south, I believe, or actually it's a local time. So it is 1:00 Mountain Time, noon Pacific, if you want to watch that game right here. But yeah, that's going to be a great game. I really do see that. I mean, that's going to have a playoff type flavor to it. And Logos, back-to-back years, they've scheduled up, right out of the gate, trying to get the best on their schedule available. So I applaud Coach Holloway for putting that together because, I mean, you're going to set yourself up for an absolute meat grind of a regular season schedule, but you're trying to inflate that max preps rating as high as you can to get into one of those top few seed lines so you're hosting the first round state tournament.
Mm-hmm. And then you look at the Kendrick game. I mean, it's a rematch of the state title. How often do you see the teams that played in the state championship play the following year? I don't know if I've seen that very often at all. And I think Butte County gets the opportunity to get a little bit of revenge. Their quarterback left early on in that state championship game. Would it have looked any differently if he actually stayed and played? Ryan's obviously shaking his head no, but that's their opportunity to try to prove that it will. Sam Thorngren does a great job down there, and he's going to be matched up against, a rookie head coach. So to see how that game will go, I think a lot of people are looking forward to. That one's also going to be on IdahoSports.com. There's a couple other games, but, the other teams that I think I want to know is really Grangeville and Moscow. That one's going to be exciting. Both teams are going to be bringing in new quarterbacks. There's a rumor that Wyatt Cross, the freshman for Moscow, is going to start. I'd be curious to see how that looks. And then Grangeville obviously bringing in Gage Smith, who it's really his first year starting too. So I would think Moscow maybe has the edge just because they have really good athletes up there. But it's going to be a good game.
Yeah, no, I think Moscow's going to win just purely on athlete. They got the best athlete in the game on the field for them. So. And Keaton Fry, in my opinion, I think he's due this year for a monster year just based on, production they had out of him last year. The other thing about Moscow, too, is their front seven's really good. They returned quite a bit of guys. I mean, they get like Finney Needham on D-line, who's just an absolute specimen. I talked about him last night in the weight room. He is a weight room monster. And you got a phenomenal middle linebacker for the Bears as well. How's their secondary going to hold up? Because they did graduate some pieces off the back end of that defense. If Grangeville does come out airing the ball out, can Moscow match up on the outside? But I mean, if you're Grangeville, you're going to have to be able to slow down Moscow, in their run game, because they're going to try to use it to try to take some pressure off if they had a freshman signal caller. At least the inexperienced. Both guys don't have much varsity reps, so. That's going to be an interesting, game right out of the chutes. There's some conference games right out of the gate too here in North Idaho as well. So it's pretty cool. I mean, if you go to the 8-man, they'll obviously talk about it, but you got conference game between Troy and Deary. Like that was a game that kind of flew under the radar. They're just 8 miles of hate between each other. And that's going to be kind of cool to see that one become a league affair now this year as Troy's been able to opt down. But yeah, I mean, checking out some of the other games out there on the schedule. We've talked about Coeur d'Alene Rigby ad nauseum last night. Wallace is taking on Timberline. I think that's a great little first round matchup for, week 1 matchup down there in Weippe. That's going to be a fun game. And I like talking about these small schools. Coeur d'Alene and Lewis County. You're going to be facing off in Nez Perce on Saturday. That's going to be a nice little road trip for the Saints to see how they come out this year and what they look like. And then we got it was kind of weird is we have a lot. I think we might have more Saturday games for North Idaho teams than Friday games in week 1 this week.
Yeah, I had no idea there was this many games. You look at the one that we talked about it a little bit last night, or at least you guys did, but Sandpoint playing Twin Falls. That's a good game.
Yeah, that's a great game. Yeah.
Far travel. And then they picked up Teton, was it the next week? So Sandpoint's really getting tested early. And I think that's exactly what you want to do if you're Ryan Knowles. You have 100%. To do as much as you can to play the best teams from down south, because Twin Falls was getting, I think they were 5th place votes, I believe, in 5A. And
they tied for 5th with Lakeland in the media poll.
That's exactly what you want to do if you're Sandpoint, when you're a team that kind of people are thinking you're not going to be as good this year. Okay, well, let's go play Twin Falls. Let's see how we can do then. You also have Timberlake playing Sugar. That went very poorly last year for Timberlake, but it's a really good game to play. I think they're going to Anaconda. That's a really good game to start out. Sugar Salem's as good as it gets. I mean, I know they're only a 4A school, but man, feels like they could compete even higher.
They could. Yeah. and I mean, the theory in this too, if you're Coach Knowles and everybody else, is that if you're going to schedule strong early, and if you take a loss, you're still actually building points in the max prep system. So even if you lose the game, but you're competitive and you lose a game against a quality opponent, you could still build your max prep score for later in the year. I mean, that's the way that algorithm is shown to work. Whether or not somebody wants to ever leak how it does work, like that's up to them. But I would love
Paul Kingsbury to tell me how that works. Yeah,
I'm reading Paul's text right now, and I don't know if I can read it on air, but
but that would be
a lot reference. But yeah,
but I think that's why I'm happy this Prepcast is happening, is because we're able to kind of publicize why all these teams up north are a lot better than some people think, but they don't even get the opportunity to show it unless they challenge themselves. When you play, multiple teams twice in your area, or you play a Montana or a Washington school, you're not able to do it. So what's the way to do it? You go play a team down south. And you match up for them, mano a mano.
Washington doesn't even start till and Washington doesn't even start till next week or the week after. So you've got to go down south because you're not going to be able to go across the border and pick up a game this week, anyways.
And I think it really works out for them. But I think that's all the main games. There was also Lewiston and Columbia. You guys hit on that last night as well. I think that's a really good game for Zane Hobart and his group, just to see how it works.
Yeah. So for games you can watch this weekend, Butte County and Kendrick will be here on IdahoSports.com. You can watch Coeur d'Alene Rigby, Grangeville, and Moscow, which you'll have the call with Tim Silflo on that game. I'm excited to listen to you guys. Logos and Hagerman will be on Saturday. That's a 1:00 Mountain Time kick. Looking forward to tuning into some of those games and just being able to see firsthand finally what's going to show up on the field. Because we could talk all we want on make prognostications on a Wednesday afternoon, but it ultimately comes down to Friday night, Saturday afternoon of what's going to show up. And you look ahead to you don't want to look too far down the road, but man, there are some absolutely amazing games coming up week 2 and week 3 as well. So we'll have a heck of a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we just want the season to start. And lastly, Paul Kingsbury, if you want to learn more about the Max Prep rankings, you can go to our YouTube channel and watch the entire show. We did it a couple years ago. I didn't watch that, Paul, but I will now. I will see what it's all about because I am very curious. And I think a lot of people in Northern Idaho are.
I thought I cracked the code a few years ago when Sandpoint was able to get the 1 seed in the playoffs. I thought I had figured it out, and then it just dropped on my face the next year when I thought that I had pinned on how things were going to shake out, and then people get hosed and they get mad. So, yeah, as soon as you think you've got it figured out, it changes. So, yeah.
Well, Ryan, I think we hit on just about everything we could on this North Idaho Prepcast. So we're just more excited for next week. So we have more stuff to talk about and more things that we actually know the answer to. And
like
so
volleyball.
I think in volleyball
and soccer. Yeah, because we went ad
soccer.
nauseam about football. We can go rounds on soccer up here in North Idaho too. So yeah,
maybe you can. It'll be a learning curve for everyone else. But it'll be fun no matter what.
It's this little black and white ball. You kick it up and down the field. I know it's foreign to you in Cottonwood, but yeah,
it really is. You'd be surprised. Hey, I'm
trying. Communists run around out there. Yeah,
I'm trying my best to learn.
If Brandon's not here to make political comments, I will. So yeah.
Well, I think I'm going to finally try to wrap this up.
Yeah.
For our second North Idaho Prepcast, as Ryan Scaggs and Hayden Uhlenkott are excited to bring you episode 3 next week. But in that time, thank you guys for watching.